For the Dead and the Living by Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, is an author who has won the Nobel Peace Prize. This essay is adapted from the speech he gave in 1993 at the dedication of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. With the exception of Israel, ours is the one country that has seen fit to make preserving the memory of the Holocaust a national imperative. When President Jimmy Carter set up the Presidential Commission on the Holocaust in 1978 and appointed me chairman, I was asked about my vision of the future Holocaust Museum. I wrote one sentence, now permanently inscribed on one of its walls: "For the dead and the living, we must bear witness." For not only are we responsible for the memories of the dead, we are also responsible for what we do with those memories. Words, images, sounds. That is the stuff of memory. 50 years ago, somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains, a young Jewish woman read a Hungarian newspaper, a brief account of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Astonished, dismayed, she wondered aloud, why are our Jews in Warsaw behaving like this? Why are they fighting? Couldn't they have waited quietly until the end of the war? Treblinka, Ponar, Belzec, Kelmno, Birkenau. She had never heard of those places. 1 year later, together with her entire family, she was in a cattle car, traveling to the black hole of history named Auschwitz. But those places and others were known to officials in Washington and London, Moscow and Stockholm, Geneva and the Vatican. After all, by April 1943, nearly 4 million Jews had already perished. The Pentagon knew, the State Department knew, the White House knew, most governments knew, only the victims did not know. Thus, the painful question, why weren't Hungarian Jews, the last remnant of Eastern European Jewry, warned of their impending doom? Jews of every description, old and young, beggars and industrialists, sages and madmen, Ashkenazim from France and Sephardim from Greece, intellectuals from Lithuania, Hasidim from Poland, together began their inexorable journey to a fiery altar of unprecedented dimension. I saw them all, including the children, entering the shadow of flames. Light is God's shadow, and Giordano Bruno, the Italian philosopher who was burned at the stake in Rome 4 centuries ago, I say no, it is fire that is his shadow, the fire that consumed a third of people whose memory of God is the most ancient in recorded history. Inside the kingdom of night, we tried to understand and could not. We found ourselves in an unfamiliar world, a creation parallel to God's, with its own hierarchy, its own princes and hangmen, its own laws and customs. There were only 2 categories, those who were there to kill and those who were there to be killed. In Poland, SS officers used Jewish infants for target practice. The only emotion they ever showed was anger when they missed. In Kiev, an SS officer beheaded 2 Jewish children in front of their mother. In anguish, she held them close and began to dance. In Romania, the Iron Guard killed Jews and displayed them in butcher shops with signs, kosher meat. As you walk through the Holocaust Museum, as you look into the eyes of the killers and their victims, ask yourselves, how could the murderers do what they did and go on living? Why was Berlin encouraged in its belief that it could decree with the impunity of the humiliation, persecution, extermination of an entire people? Why weren't the railways leading to Birkenau bombed by Allied planes? Why was there no outcry, no public indignation? Another question. Where did the poorly armed fighters in the ghettos and the forests find the courage to take on the mightiest legions in Europe? And the most awesome question of all, why was man's silence matched by God's? The questions, in fact, are endless and will forever remain unanswered. Indeed, if there was an answer to the Holocaust, it must, by definition, be the wrong answer. Nor is the museum an answer, but it is a question mark. Every event connected with that period defies human understanding. It is not because I cannot explain that you will not understand. It is because you will not understand that I cannot explain. The essence of this tragedy is that it can never be fully communicated. One of my tales, an SS officer derides a young yeshiva student, telling him that if he happened to survive, his words would fall on deaf ears. Some will laugh at you, he says. Others will try to redeem themselves through you. People will refuse to believe you. You will possess the truth, but it will be the truth of a madman. And yet, we are duty-bound to try. Not to do so would mean to forget. To forget would mean to kill the victims a second time. We could not prevent their first death. We must not allow them to vanquish again. Memory is not only a victory over time, it is a triumph over injustice. That is one of the lessons we have learned. There are others. We have learned that though the Holocaust was principally a Jewish tragedy, its implications are universal. Though not all victims were Jewish, all Jews were victims. We have learned that whatever happens to one community ultimately affects every community. Anti-Semitism is the beginning, not the end of a disease. Prejudice knows no boundaries. When children are killed in Bosnia, it is our humanity that has failed. When people massacre one another in India, it is our fault too. We have learned that although every human being has the right to be different, none has the right to be indifferent to suffering. Nevertheless, hatred continues to cause so much suffering in the world today: religious hatred, ethnic hatred, racial hatred. Let us therefore seize this moment to condemn the scourge of anti-Semitism, bigotry, and hatred. The bloodshed in Bosnia has to be stopped. We cannot tolerate its excruciating sights of this old new war. I was the former Yugoslavia last fall. I cannot sleep remembering what I have seen. As a Jew, I am saying that we have to do something to stop the killing in that country. People fight each other and children die. Why? Something, anything must be done to stop the bloodshed there. It will not stop unless we stop it. Remember the loving yet naive woman somewhere in the Carpathians who together with most Jews of her town perished in tempest of fury and fire. She was my mother.